Welcome to One-on-One. I'm Greg Bassey, your host from the Salisbury Independent newspaper. It's a big day here at PAC 14. We are in budget time, capital budget time. There's lots of things going on with our Wycomico County Council, and we have Marc Kilmer here to tell us more about it. Welcome, Marc.
Well, thanks for having me. I always appreciate the invitation.
So how's the year started off? You guys in the middle of capital budget. You'll have that done shortly, and then you'll really roll up your sleeves and go into the real budget.
Yeah. The capital budget has to be approved at our next meeting on the second meeting of February. So we will. I don't foresee any issues with that. Anything that we'll cut. The big issue there is the replacement of Beaver Run Elementary. That has been a high priority, I know, for the community on that side of the county. So. That's moving forward. Mardella, the planning process for doing something with the Mardella, Springs School is also part of that, which is the other, I think, major part of the capital budget. So besides those two big issues, everything else is fairly routine. Some road maintenance and all that sort of stuff that is the essence of county government, but usually doesn't get a lot of attention.
When you go back and look at our county, I do it in the history column all the time. The capital budget is always a big deal. And I have to say that we have always been very thoughtful in terms of what we need and taking the correct steps to get it. I mean, the county's really got a great history of building the right buildings to improve the quality of life.
Yeah. I mean, I think that the capital budget is supposed to be a 5-year plan, and then the next year is really what we spend money on. But the 5 years is planning out, and I think there's a better process now working with the Board of Education, especially in terms of aligning the county's overall spending goals with the construction needs of the Board of Education. And we obviously 4 years ago we had the issue with West Salisbury, which we worked out, but it was a little rough. The planning for Beaver Run, I think, has been much better, and there's been a much more cooperative process, and it's worked out a lot better. So I think that that was the one hiccup, I think, before in the capital budget, was trying to align the Board of Education and the county spending needs, and now that seems to have been worked out much better, and it's a much smoother process.
Always complaints about the quality of our school buildings, but like in the last 5 years, suddenly, if you look at the inventory, we've got a lot of really great buildings. We've solved a lot of those problems. There's still problems out there, but we've solved a lot. You mentioned West Salisbury because the timing on that was interesting, because the Beaver Run discussion was just starting when West Salisbury was in sort of conflict, and people were like, after the Bennett Middle fight, everyone was like, you're gonna have to hold on to your hats for this Beaver Run thing. It's gonna be all out war, and that hasn't happened.
Well, I think there's been a lot of discussions behind the scenes. With there's a commission that people from the county and people from the school that work on planning the needs of the schools, and I think that's worked better. I think that we all learned lessons from the West Salisbury incident, where we don't want to have that happen again. So all that sort of stuff, we're all we've learned lessons, and we've all learned how to work together better, and just kind of, there was never. West Salisbury, we all understood something needed to be done there. It was just the way to go about doing it.
Right.
And so, when we all have the same goal in mind, we've figured out a better way to work together towards that goal. And I think that's what we're seeing with Beaver Run.
You represent Mardella, so I hope this isn't too awkward, but I know people in Mardella feel like they're forgotten, that they're not a part of the county. Talk about the 3 high schools, they forget Mardella all the time. They finally got their track this year, which is a great thing, beautiful thing. Those athletic fields are finally what they deserve to be. The new gym is great. But again, now the question is, whole new school or put a Band-Aid on the one they have? I think more than a Band-Aid. But every year they win the state award for being able to maintain that building as well as they do. It's amazing what they're able to do to keep that thing going at the cost levels that they are.
Yeah, well, as far as being forgotten, Mardella Springs certainly isn't forgotten, by me.
By you.
So I'm up in Mardella Springs a lot. I'm very involved in the community up there. But that school has it's a very community school atmosphere there. I mean, there's a lot of pride.
Excellent test scores. Yeah.
The parents are very involved. There's a real sense of community in that school that it would be great if every single school in Wycomico County had that. And
Yeah.
and I think it is because it is out there, it is in the community, and there's a real sense of ownership that the parents and the students and people even who don't have children in that school have about that school. So, Mardellis brings, their commitment to education and just that community and in that school there is something that should be the pride of Wycomico County.
Now, a year ago, the superintendent gave a State of the School speech at Parkside. It was well attended. It was actually sponsored by the business community. It was well attended. This year, last Monday, I was there, and there you were, front and center. So thank you for being there. What did you think of it?
I thought it was a good address. Last year, again, I was out of town.
It's okay.
There were a variety of reasons why.
It's just funny what people notice.
Yeah, exactly. People notice, and obviously, I think that, there was we made an attempt to have good council representation this year because it is important. It is important to show that we do care.
Yeah.
It was glad to have the turnout that we had and the strong council support there. In terms of the substance, it was it's very good to hear and have that dialogue, hear her plans, to know what the vision for the school is going forward, to get an idea of what the ask will be in the budget ahead of time. That's always, it's always nice to have that number as we go into that. To hear our plans for the performing arts school and to hear that, probably won't require, county bonding to do, that's always excellent news. So, yeah, and then to also see the community support and see the people in the room and see how well they are, rallying around Wycomico County Public Schools. So, and I was glad to be there, glad to be able to attend this year, and made sure to stay in town this weekend and so we could attend. So,
well, I guess you're a budget hawk. I know you're a budget hawk, but you're a budget hawk with a heart or a brain or something. You are reasonable about it, and you talk about it, and you admit that you might not be right necessarily, but this is how you feel about a spending situation. And you want the schools to improve, but not in a way just by throwing money at them. You want a real process that can qualify what's going on and explain it.
Well, what I appreciate about Dr. Hanlon's approach is that she asks for maintenance of effort, which we have to give.
Right.
Then above maintenance of effort, she breaks it down as $300,000 for this, $400,000 for that, $1 million for this. So we can look and say, all right, here is very specifically what the money will go towards. We can question about that. We can drill down to see, what exactly her plans are for that. Can it be done differently? And then if we do decide, like we did, this past year, to go above maintenance of effort, we can say, all right, we can look and say it's specifically going towards this.
Right.
And that is a very important thing to do because, you can't just throw money, blindly at it. If they're going to get more than is required by the state above maintenance of effort, which locks us in future years to give that same amount, it's good to know this is what it will be used for, and then we can say, is that something that will produce results, and how will we measure those results? Because that's what if we're going to do pre-K, which we funded some last year, all right, how are we going to measure the results of that? And we talked about that, and we expect in I think 4 years now to come back and say, did you live up to what you said that this money would be used for?
Right.
So that we especially at a time when we do have some extra revenue coming in, we are doing fairly well in terms of revenue. We're spending more in Wycomico County than I would like, but
right.
Again, I'm one of seven, on the council. That's not my determination to make, but we are doing very well in terms of revenue. We're not deficit spending. We're not in financial trouble. So when that's the case there, and we can afford money for education, and there is a definite community push for that, it's good to have a firm plan by Dr. Hanlon to say, if you get this extra money, it will be used for this. We can measure it, we can look at results.
And the administration has been pretty good about banking money away, almost to the point that some people feel like that they should spend more.
I give the county executive a hard time about, the spending increases, but to be fair, the revenue has gone up even more than the spending increases.
Right.
So, that it's not that we're eating through the savings we have. But it is very important. There are signs that possibly the economy will be slowing down. If that happens, I think people will be very happy that Wycomico County has a very large pool of money that we can draw on that we will have to use possibly to meet maintenance of effort. What happened coming up on 10 years now, I guess, 10 years ago now.
It was bad, yeah.
Yeah, the revenues dropped off the cliff. And that was mainly income tax revenue because property tax revenue remained constant.
Right.
The way the revenue cap works, the tax rate went up, property tax revenue remained constant. But income tax revenue just declined, and there had to be cuts to the Board of Education. There had to be cuts at roads. Some of the drainage problems we're dealing with now are likely a result of the fact that roads, the state took away all of our money for
right.
roads, we couldn't do basic maintenance and all the things that needed to be done to prevent some of the things that are happening now. So it was I wasn't on the council at the time. I was watching as an observer, but you talk to the people that were on the council at the time. Joe Holloway. Bob was on the council at the time. I mean, that was I think a something that really affected them in terms of we don't want to have to go through this again. So
Right.
we need to save this money. So yeah, I mean, I give them credit. I certainly give them credit for that.
Dallas Baker this week gave a great presentation on the update with the ditches situation, drainage. You can just tell he never thought he'd have to spend so much time on an issue like this when he signed up for the job. But he really is, and that staff devoting a lot of time to fixing the ditch issues.
Yeah. I mean, drainage and roads are the issue I hear about most. I've said that to you before, and that is just becoming worse. We think it will continue to only get worse. I mean, then again, Joe Holloway points out, he was on the council 10 years ago when they were having a drought. So, we never know what's going to happen with weather. But right now, it looks like we're going to continue to get a wet year. And
Right.
if that happens, we're going to continue to see washouts. I mean, I live right by the Nanticoke Road washout. When that washed out a few months ago, Pemberton Drive also washed out.
Right.
There are numerous problems that this drainage causes, not just to houses, but to our transportation network, to farmers' fields, things like that. That this is something we have to get a handle on. We have to have a more strategic plan to deal with the overall drainage issues in Wycomico County, because all indications are it's just going to keep getting wetter. Sea levels are going to rise, and as someone who represents a district that is bordered by the Nanticoke and has the Wycomico, river running through it.
Right.
This is a very low-lying, very wet area, and a lot of District 2, is if the sea level rises too much, isn't going to be there. So.
Yeah. When Bob Culver got up at one of the forums and said, inevitably the Wycomico and the Nanticoke are going to meet somewhere across Whitehaven or that southern part of the county. That's scary stuff.
Yeah, I mean, Bob lives in Whitehaven. I mean,
Yeah.
he sees it at his front door every day. You go down to Whitehaven at times. I mean, there's, the river is well back. The whole village is underwater.
Right.
And, there's nothing we can. I don't know what you can do about that. But, that sort of, the heavy rain events and the sea level rising.
That's a whole separate issue.
Yeah, that's a separate issue. But when in terms you have the heavy rain events and things like that, we have to have a way to get that water off the roads and so they don't wash out and somewhere for that water to go. So Dallas it's a very tough job for Dallas. I mean, I don't envy him in trying to deal with these things, but he's doing a good job. It'd be nice if we had more resources at roads devoted to drainage.
Well, he said that in the meeting, and I had not heard this. He said he's 11 positions down in his office.
Yeah, the economy's good. Right now that there's a lot of competition for workers. We see that throughout the county. I think, Department of Corrections is also another thing where the county has a tough time getting workers because there's a lot of competition for those individuals to work at, other facilities. So I think that's part of the overall trend of the economy is so good that people can, find jobs elsewhere. And, let's be frank, the county's pay rate is not comparable to a lot of private businesses. The county has great benefits, which a lot of people work for the county for, but when it comes in terms of base pay,
Right.
From county employees, that's probably their biggest complaint is that their pay rate just isn't comparable. So I understand what Dallas is saying. I mean, we would love if we could find money in the budget to give him a dedicated drainage crew. But he's got a point that he has other jobs he has to fill too. So
Right.
Why ask for all these positions that he just can't fill? So I'm not sure what to do about that. I mean, I'm sure we'll be talking about that at budget time. I mean, I'm a budget hawk, but we did add some money back to the budget, last year for drainage issues. So,
Right.
That's an essential government function that the county government needs to focus on. And I'm all, if Dallas needs more resources, let's give them those resources.
Yeah, and you had an important hand that first or second budget year for you, where you bought the whiteboards back for the school, something that the teachers had asked for, and it was a really great gesture where you had listened and then responded.
Well, I mean, that was the council working together like the council should. We all sat in a room. I mean, you were in that room, I believe. And we said, here's my priority. Here's Matt Holloway. Was well, that was the computer carts.
Right.
That it was all about putting together a budget. I mean, that's how you put together a budget: is what's your priority, what's the overall spending number, and you work with that. So that's how the council should work, is that sort of stuff. And the council, we had a very good council. These past 4 years where we all worked together very well, and we have 2 new members now, and they seem great. They're Bill McCain is essentially his second term. He's hopped right back in, and he's very active on the council, and And Bill's always very involved with the community. And Josh, Josh is very thorough. He's someone who likes to study an issue and get very informed about it. And I definitely appreciate that approach. So Josh,
Right.
has a depth of knowledge from his work too. So I think we have two good assets on the council.
Your claim to fame, I think the reason you're here is that you wanted an elected school board, and I think maybe if we had elected you to that school board, that would have been maybe it for you. I don't know, but you're on the council, and unfortunately had a situation where a man who won on the school board, Mr. Gosley, David Gosley, passed away. And I was looking at the rules, the process for replacing a member. Oh my gosh, it's a much more complicated process than I realized. I guess I had read all this at the time, but it never happens. So the county council's involved in this. You want to talk about that?
Yeah. Well, first let me say, that we all, were saddened by the news of Dave's passing. I mean, I've known Dave for over a decade. He's, very active in Republican politics, and Dave was never shy about expressing his opinion.
Yeah.
So, our thoughts are certainly with his family. Got to know his son a little bit, and so it was sad and it was sudden. So we're everyone is, very.
I feel like I got to know him really well because I kind of went through that whole election experience with him, with winning and losing and winning and losing and winning.
Yeah. He won his office by one vote. He lost by one vote, then they had a recount, and he won by one vote.
Right.
So he will, I think, be remembered in Wycombe County history. Dave or Bob Caldwell, and
Yes.
Dave Gosley. Two of the most in the past 10 years they've won by one vote and two votes.
Right.
So yeah, I mean he's got a little footnote in Wycombe County history, but so to replace him. The process is we have the school board nominating commission that met to appoint the it already met and it appointed helped recommend the two members that
Right.
the council had appointed
During
prior
that
to-
interim
during
between
the interim period.
elected and non-elected,
Yeah.
right?
So that school board nominating commission is already formed and that still operates, and that was set up in case there's vacancies that arise.
See, I didn't know that. I thought maybe we're going to have to do that commission all over again.
No.
So that's good to know.
No, it's
Okay.
already set up, and it just has to be reconstituted. And
Okay.
if there's any vacancies, then you may have to fill those. But
Right.
it's already appointed. So they meet, and then they will hold two public hearings. They will interview candidates, and then they will recommend two names to the county council. And then the county council will receive those names, and then hold a public hearing. And we have to appoint one of those two names, or if we don't like them, we send them back to the nominating commission, and they forward more names to us. So it's the nominating commission that essentially screens the people who want to be on the school board, and then the council has the final say. It has to be somebody from the district. It has to be District 3, which is essentially the southeastern part of Wycomico County. Anyone who's interested can certainly contact the county council office, and our administrator, Laura Hurley, can give them more details. The school board nominating commission should be meeting soon and accepting resumes, and going from there. And so, but what will happen is that person will serve until the next election, and not the next regularly scheduled school board election, but the presidential election will serve until 2020. Then
Oh, okay. So it's not a 3-year deal.
it's not a 3-year deal. It because it was so early in the term, they can hold an election,
Okay.
at the same time as the presidential election, essentially. So there will be someone nominated in the primary, in the presidential election year, and then someone will be elected, during the presidential election. So that will be something new for Wycombe County. It will be a special election, but it will be at the same time as the presidential election, at the same ballot. There won't be any need for special voting station or anything
Right.
like that. It will be on the same ballot.
There was a little bit of a problem this week at the county council. There were some harsh words were shared.
All right, well, you're correct. That is what occurred, and what remains to be seen whether or not that's a brief hiccup or whether that is what will continue. I certainly hope it's not what continues. We need cooperation between the executive branch for us to do our job. At question was really the Poplar Hill opioid facility. We're still not sure exactly what is going to happen there, and that we'd been trying to get a work session for a while on this, and because we hear about plans for it, we read about plans in the Salisbury Independent, but we don't know anything. We receive questions from the community, and so we wanted to have a work session on that. And I'm someone who has it's in my district. I have people who are concerned in the district about that. I have an open mind about it. I'm still trying to gather information about it. I don't have any information. I don't know what's going on there. And I think a lot of council members are that way. There's some that are very much opposed to it, but I think many are simply trying to figure out what's going on. So
Right.
I was looking forward to this work session because I thought it would help me clarify some of my questions and give the public, more importantly, give the public information about what's going on, because that's not getting out there. I mean, we read stuff in the newspaper, but there's also a need to ask questions about that and to delve down into it. Well, there were some issues about the executive's office was upset because the council president didn't put something on the agenda that came in at the last minute. That is, I guess we can get into the inside baseball aspects of scheduling and the council prerogative versus
But it
executive
affected
prerogative.
the tone of the meeting.
Affected the tone of the meeting because, well, one of our work sessions was about the CIP that we have to approve next Tuesday, and certain council members had questions about the projects on there.
Right.
So we're going to be asked to vote on something that some council members don't feel they have full information on, which is never a good thing.
Right.
And then the Poplar Hill facility is something that is frankly counterproductive not to meet with the council on, because as the county attorney said there, the county attorney who did show up, who was there for something else, but we asked him some legal questions, said the council is going to be involved in this because we have to approve the lease if that's ever given by the state. We have to approve the grant that apparently was approved by the state. We know nothing about the grant. I mean, I appreciate your reporting on it. You've given me the most information of anything on this. And so, if you need our approval, it only makes sense to talk with us about it, to have us involved with it. And we need a collaborative process, because this is could be a very important thing for Wycomico County. We have an opioid crisis. We all recognize that. We all recognize the need for more treatment in Wycomico County. This could be a way to do that. But there needs to be cooperation with the county council, because we have to approve these things, and we are elected by the people to represent them for the county government. There's also a need to involve the community, especially the community of people that live in that area, and to get information for there. And so to refuse to give information on that, to refuse to work in a cooperative manner, it is something that is exceptionally disappointing, and it is something that is also counterproductive, because ultimately, if you're asking us for our votes, making us angry that you're not working with us, it's not, that doesn't move the ball. We're not on the same team moving the ball down the field.
Right.
And so, yeah, I mean, I was as angry as I get, there,
Right.
and it's I'm usually a fairly calm person, but yeah, I mean, it was something that I was not happy about, but then again, we can certainly move past it. I mean, we've, as has been evident in the past, there's been flare-ups between the executive and the council. The problem is when the anger that the individuals feel towards each other. We're all human. We all have emotions. We all react in emotional ways sometimes. That shouldn't get in the way of the people's business, though. If we were, if our anger at the executive, for instance, allowed us to impede the county's business, we do something, like voting down the legislation that was there for the landfill. We can't let our personal emotions get in the way of what's necessary for the county. So, yeah, I mean, we may have been mad at the executive, but we voted, the legislation that he put forward about the budget thing to build Cell 9 at the landfill. We all recognize that's important to do. We vote for that because it's in the interest of people of Wycomico County. So we can be mad at each other, we can have emotions, and we can be upset at what we all do. We've all been there. Every council member's been mad at the executive's been mad at every council member. That's just the way it goes, and that's fine. But we can't let those emotions get in the way of doing the people's business. And the council, we have to be wary on our side of doing that too, because we are just as prone to those sort of negative emotions too. But last night I think was the first time we saw that really impeding the county's business, that sort of dysfunction, as John said, impeding the county's business. And I certainly hope that we just move past it. We've flared up at each other in the past, and we've worked together at the next meeting, and that's fine. And we can do that. That's my hope for the future. Let's just move past it, and we have to work together. We are in the same office for the next 4 years, almost 4 years. So let's move forward. That's all. That's all I hope.
Without digging too deep in the issue, someone said to me yesterday, they said, this thing deserves severe public vetting and scrutiny. Yeah. And I get that, but I kind of admire Bob. I feel like Bob's in a bad spot. Like, he's got a drug problem. He's had some success in solving it. He likes getting the accolades for the success. Now there's this next stage where he can kind of be a hero. The county can be a hero for the Lower Shore or whoever, have this facility. We could really make a change. But the risks are so extreme in that, it's almost worth not even doing, not touching. I don't know why he would want to do this. And now the state's like, sure, we'll give you money to do this. Sure, it'll help solve a state problem. Yeah. But then does the county want all that responsibility? I don't know why it would, but the problem is real. It's a huge deal.
The problem is real, and Bob deserves credit for his work on the opioid.
So I'm sure in his mind, he's like, "Why are they nitpicking me? I'm just trying to do the right thing here."
Exactly. I mean, that working with the council is something that would be difficult to do. I admit that. We're probably not the easiest people to work with sometimes. I get that. That is, I don't fault him for the hesitation sometimes there. But this is something that we have to work together on, and it is something that is big, and it is something that we have a lot of questions. But there is a way we can work collaboratively on these sort of things. We saw it with Conley Mill. We worked together on Conley Mill,
right?
And we talked behind the scenes.
Lots of up and downs in that thing.
Lots of up and downs.
It was headed in all kinds of directions. And it all worked out.
It all worked out. We worked behind the scenes.
Yeah.
We talked one-on-one about it. I was adamantly opposed to it when it was first proposed.
Right.
We had numerous work sessions on it. We spent a lot of time on this. The executive's office did an excellent job of taking into consideration my concerns, Joe Holloway's concerns, other concerns, and we worked, and it was a good process that, again, wasn't always fun to do. The legislative process is always messy, but we came to a thing where they moved Joe Holloway and me, and I think every other council member, I think Larry voted against it, but every other council member to a yes vote on that, where we were adamantly opposed to it before, because there was the collaborative process where it was done openly, done collaboratively. And so that is, we are willing to work. I have an open mind on this. I recognize the problem. A treatment facility may be the answer to some of our problems, but we have to have collaborative and cooperative work on this. And the community has to be assured that their fears, and there are people out there that call me up expressing their fears about this and their worst case concern, scenarios that they think may happen. And I can't reassure them because I don't have any information. I said, read the Salisbury Independent.
It's not like any new news. It's all the news that it really exists.
Yeah. So, but that's part of our problem is that, we're told that there's really nothing to be told, that we're still in preliminary phases. We don't know anything. So there's no point in having a work session.
Right.
We read something in the newspaper and we're like, well, if there's nothing to be told, why is it in the news then? I just hope we can just move forward, not have this be the sort of roadmap that we follow for the next 4 years, because that will be a miserable 4 years.
Well, congratulations on your reelection. We're looking forward to your next 4 years in office.
Well, thank you.
How can people reach you?
Well, you can email me, mkilmer@wycomicocounty.org. You can give me a phone call. You can find me on Facebook. I mean, people seem to find me pretty easily. So, my phone number is on the County Council website, 410-749-1697. So, give me a call. I'm always happy to talk to anybody.
And this is the time of year where you show up at people's houses with your daughter selling Girl Scout cookies. I know that.
It is Girl Scout season, so the experience I received knocking on doors definitely helps for door-to-door cookie sales. I'm trying to impart that in my daughter now. So yeah.
He's Marc Kilmer. He's our county councilman in District 2. We were thrilled he's here today. Thanks for being here.
Oh, thanks for having me. I always like him.
I'm Greg Bassett from the Salisbury Independent. Another edition of 101 right here on PAC 14.
First Shore Federal is proud to support PAC 14 and one-on-one. We'd encourage every business to support PAC 14 and pick a program and support it, and let's make a difference.